Ever wondered why rockets don't just fall out of the sky? Well, that's because of the fascinating world of rocket science. It's not as complicated as it sounds, really. In fact, let's break it down together, shall we? First off, let's talk about gravity. Imagine you're a kid on a swing. The Earth is like that ground beneath you. When you push off the ground, you swing forward, right? That's you overcoming gravity. But eventually, gravity pulls you back down. Now, rockets, they have to do a similar thing, but they have to push off so hard that they don't just swing forward, they keep going all the way up into space. Now, what gives rockets this super push? It's something we call thrust. You see, rockets are kind of like balloons. Yep, you heard it right, balloons. Picture this, when you blow up a balloon and let it go without tying it, what happens? It zips around the room, right? That's because the air you blew into the balloon rushes out and propels it forward. This is exactly how a rocket works. Inside a rocket, there's a whole lot of fuel. When this fuel burns, it creates hot gases. These gases don't have anywhere to go but out of the back of the rocket. And when they do, they push the rocket in the opposite direction. It's just like the air rushing out of the balloon. This is what we call thrust. So in a nutshell, rockets overcome gravity by generating a lot of thrust. They burn fuel to create hot gases that rush out and push the rocket up, and away. It's a bit like being on a swing that never comes back down, or like being a balloon that keeps zipping around without stopping. So, now you know that rockets are basically just supersized fire-breathing balloons. What do you think happens when you eat a lot of beans and then go for a run? Well, rockets kind of do the same thing, but with rocket fuel. Imagine yourself as a runner. Before a big race, you need to eat food that's going to give you energy, right? The same goes for rockets. But instead of pasta or protein bars, rockets use rocket fuel. When you start running, your body begins to burn the food you've eaten, turning it into energy. This energy helps you to run faster and longer. Similarly, when a rocket takes off, it starts burning its fuel. This burning process creates a force called thrust. Just like the energy from your food propels you forward, the thrust from the burning fuel propels the rocket upwards. The more fuel it burns, the more thrust it generates, and the higher and faster it can go. So next time you're running after eating a lot of beans, think about how you're like a rocket turning food into energy. Rocket science may sound difficult, but it's not as complicated as you think. Let's break it down, shall we? Remember those key points we've been discussing throughout this video? Well, it's time to put them together and make sense of it all. First off, let's talk about gravity. Gravity is that invisible force that keeps us grounded, quite literally. Without it, we'd all be floating around like astronauts in space. But when it comes to launching rockets, gravity is kind of like that nagging friend who doesn't want you to leave the party. It pulls the rocket down, making it harder to lift off. Now, this is where thrust comes in. Thrust is the force that propels the rocket upwards, saying a firm no thank you to gravity. It's like the wings on a bird that push against the air, allowing it to soar high in the sky. But how does a rocket generate thrust? Well, that's where our friend rocket fuel comes into the picture. Unlike a bird that uses muscles to generate force, a rocket uses fuel. When this fuel is ignited, it creates a high-pressure and high-temperature gas that pushes out of the rocket's engine, causing the rocket to move in the opposite direction. This is a classic example of Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So, in simple terms, the rocket, like a bird, needs to overcome gravity to get off the ground. Instead of flapping wings, it uses the thrust generated from igniting fuel to push against the force of gravity. And just like a bird needs to use its energy wisely to fly long distances, a rocket needs to use its fuel efficiently to reach space. So, there you have it. Rocket science is just about overcoming gravity, generating thrust, and using fuel efficiently. It's not so much rocket science as it is bird science. Who knew?